Okay, this is another piggyback off Cairo's video. Sonic 2 is considered to be one of the greatest Sonics ever made. Okay, so Sonic 2 is considered to be one of the best Sega Genesis games made of all time. It is a great addition to the Sonic series, but it has one little creep factor that we need to talk about. Time to take a nice shower. After defeating Robotnik, I definitely deserve it. Wait, what are you doing here? Sonic, I am your best friend, and we go everywhere together. Everywhere. Okay, the two-tailed fox is named Tails. Tails is a name that Sonic gave him. His actual name is Miles Prowse. And he starts off pretty young when he meets Sonic.
I want to stay and help.
You get out of here now or I'll tell everyone your real name is Miles.
No, not that!
What's your name, Squirt?
Promise not to tell anyone? It's Miles.
Miles?
Yeah, I hate it.
Okay, I'll call you something else. I'll call you Tails.
Wow, what a
thinks he's a bird because he can fly, but he's realizes he's a fox later on. He also becomes the smartest person on the Sonic team. He has like an IQ of 200 or something. He invents all the inventions. He's actually as smart as Robotnik. He's just younger than Robotnik. So let's talk about the actual game. Tails is the only new character brought to this game if you don't count another one that I'm going to talk about later as the version of another character. I'll get to it when I get there. But Sonic 2 has a great diverse set of levels next to Sonic the Hedgehog, and that's primarily because they got rid of the third act that the first game used and just used 2 acts per level till you get to the end, and then some of the end levels have 3 acts. But most of the levels only has 2 acts. They have the one main level, and the second level is when you fight Robotnik. The thing I love about Sonic 2 is most of the levels is really fast-paced compared to Sonic the Hedgehog before it. It's all about going fast, jumping platforms while maintaining your speed to get the best time. There's just a lot of really great stuff in the Sonic 2 level designs. Robotnik also has it comes back every act 2 or so and has a unique boss battle, but I think the Sonic the Hedgehog 1 boss battles were actually better, minus Starlight Zone. But however, the final boss of Sonic 2 is probably the hardest boss in all of Sonic if you played on the original Sega like I did. So a new feature to this game is the excellent versus mode. It's probably the best versus mode I've seen out of any Sonic game leading up to Adventure Battle 2, which that's arguably better, but at the same time, I don't know, Sonic 2 just has that classic feel. I remember playing with my sister for hours in this versus mode. She always had to be Tails and I was Sonic. And we would race, and I remember spending 7-8 hours at a time playing with her. And when we get to the casino level, we would just spend almost all the 10 minutes that was allowed in the level to just gamble with our rings, and then we would finish. The interesting thing about this versus mode, though, is it's not about it's not about who gets to the finish first. It's about who gets to the finish with the most rings. So you can get to the finish and still lose. However, it's very strategic, and let's say you get to the finish first and you're low on rings and your opponent can't make it to the finish in time, you automatically win. You have a minute to get to the finish once your opponent hits the finish line. There's also all these TVs and items through the versus mode, like you're actually playing the game. And it's really cool. Like you can swap places. There's a Robotnik TV, and you don't know what you're getting before you hit the TV. So the Robotnik will take all your rings, and it's just really cool. Also, every time you die, you get reset back to the beginning of the level. But again, all the rings that have been taken have already been taken, so you're kind of screwed unless you can figure something out, or maybe your opponent raced so fast that they didn't collect a lot of rings. Either way, it was a whole lot of fun. Now in the main game, Tails acts as an AI companion. He'll help you fight things, but he'll basically just copy your movements. So if you're very clever, you can kind of control Tails in a way by moving Sonic in a certain way. But Tails most of the time is useless as an AI. Now, the pure beauty of playing one player, though, is if you had a friend, or in my case, a sister that wanted to play with you too, the second player can take over control Tails by just moving around on the second control pad. It was kind of cool. Tails is an invincible person, so you can literally have your friend attack all the bosses and everything without putting you at risk. However, that's one of the flaws of the game as well, and I'll get into that in a little bit later. Now let's talk about the levels. Sonic 2 has some of the most iconic levels in Sonic of all time. You start first at Emerald Fields or Emerald Zone. It's basically the same as Green Hill Zone. It's like next door to Green Hill, right? The story in this game is Robotnik is actually after Sonic. So after being defeated in the first game, he wants Sonic's power just like you see in the movies. So he is doing everything he can to lure Sonic out and for Sonic to come to him. Okay, just like the first game, you can go into realms getting it in order to get the Chaos Emeralds. There are 7 Chaos Emeralds, not 8, as I said in my last video. I always count the Master Emerald as an 8th Chaos Emerald, even though it's related to the Chaos Emeralds and it controls the Chaos Emeralds. It's technically not one of the Chaos Emeralds. So there's 7. If you collect all 7, there's a new feature in this game that allows you to go into Super Sonic. This is a little disappointing about Sonic 2 to me. The Chaos Realms are a lot easier than they ever were in Sonic 1. I have a great hand-eye coordination, so these little raceways have never been an issue for me whatsoever. And it's really easy to get them. In fact, I can get them so fast that I can appear Super Sonic way before halfway through the game. Chemical Plant is probably the most iconic level for me. It's not my favorite by any means, but is the one that I always remember kind of hating, like Marble Zone, and as I get older, I like it a lot more. I remember the music was distinct, and it was the first time I ever seen something like this. There was a lot of speed loops and everything. There was a lot of notable enemies, like the pods of liquid that shoot up from the pipes. Those return in later games too, and it's always cool to see them because they started in Sonic 2. Now, the Mystic Aquatic Zone is one of my favorite architectural or aesthetic looking, I should say, levels of all time in Sonic. I love Greek stuff, Greek lore anyway, not the Greek food, that's terrible stuff. But Greek lore, as far as like studying for fiction and things like that, I love the architecture. Mystic Aquatic Zone has a ton of that. It was also the level that screamed, I am finally getting decently far into Sonic 2. It was a great level. It included water and land, and the music was on point. The Robotnik boss battle at the end was one of the better boss battles in this game. You had to like jump on arrows in order to get to Robotnik. It was pretty fun. And there was some cheat ways about like getting on top of the statues and stuff in the original Sega Genesis. I'm not sure about any of the remakes or anything, but yeah, this level is one of my favorites. Now, the next level is a casino. You already know how much I love the casino from the versus portion of this, how I used to play with my sister in this particular level, and things like that. So I'm not going to talk too much about this level. It's great fun. It's a great addition to Sonic the Hedgehog. What I am going to talk about is Supersonic. Supersonic is attainable at this level pretty easily. I can't remember if you can attain it before this level or not, but it's easily attained at Casino. Now, how Supersonic works is once you get 50 rings, basically enough to open the portal into the Chaos Realm, you're able to use Supersonic. Supersonic allows you to be invincible and fly around. Well, you have to still stick to the ground, but you can jump higher. You can basically float while running. And no enemies can kill you. The only way you can die is like falling off. Also, but it ticks down. If you have 50 rings, then you have 50 seconds of being supersonic. You can replenish your rings by just grabbing more. But once your rings hit 0, the supersonic will end and you'll be vulnerable again. You don't need to worry. In Sonic 2, supersonic is pretty broke. There's very few times, if any, that you'll ever run out of rings before you need to. Now I'm going to go ahead and point it out in case I haven't talked about it yet, but the spin dash was actually created in Sonic 2, and it's used in Sonic 2 and 3 effectively. I'm pointing it out because it was a big deal in Cairo's video and my video on Sonic the Hedgehog 1, how the original version did not have the spin dash that we know today. Now, I love the spin dash, don't get me wrong, but the spin dash is not utilized well in newer games or anything like that. I loved it in Sonic 2 and Sonic 3. But I'm glad he has it throughout the games. I guess in the remake of Sonic the Hedgehog you can spin dash, but that honestly 2 and 3 are the only games that I remember that it was absolutely fun to do and essential to do. Okay, the next set of levels is Hilltop Zone. Now, it's gorgeous to look at, beautiful clouds, there's a lot of lava, you go through volcanoes. I do love this level and the aesthetic. There's not that much to say about it. It's like Marble Zone put together with Starlight Zone in a cool way. However, I prefer Marble Zone over Hilltop any day, just simply because half the time in Hilltop you're stuck inside a walled area where you don't get to see the clouds. The Mythic Cave Zone is fantastic. It's one of the best two versus maps. However, it is a little frustrating at times because there is a lot of enemies. There is a lot of things that just want to kill you. There's a lot of things that can smush you and kill you instantly. It's one of the more chaotic levels, and some of the enemies are designed to make you wait in order to attack them, like the glow bugs. But yeah, it's a great zone. There's not really that much to say about it. Oriole Ocean Zone is gorgeous to look at and gorgeous to run through. You can fall off the edge and still survive by jumping really fast. This is a mechanic that Sonic has used for sand and oil and things in future games. It's also just the enemies are fascinating to see, like the octopuses that jump up into the air, also the cannons that fire you around. It's all a lot of fun. It's a great zone altogether. Metropolitan Zone is one of the last zones and is one of those stage 3 zones, so it has 3 different levels. Other than the music, I never cared for this one, even even when I became an adult, it's just like, it's a boring zone to me. The design is cool, but you're just traveling up and down some cogs and stuff. I don't care for it that much, but to each their own. Also, watch out for those starfish you see on the wall. They're actually mines, and they just explode needles through the wall at you. Now, Sky Zone is an interesting level. It's the first time we're introduced to Tails' plane. Now, Tails' plane becomes the tornado later on and gets a paint job, which is blue, but this is the first time we see him really driving it. You can't fall off the plane or anything. Tails will perfectly sync with wherever you're going on it. The goal is to get to Robotnik's ship. It's an okay level. It was fun because it's the first time we ever saw anything, but it doesn't hold up today. Also, this is Team Sonic's first sign of fascination with space. They are obsessed with Sonic the Hedgehog going to outer space. So get used to final fights with Robotnik and other things taking place in outer space. It happens in a lot of the games. Also, this whole sequence with Tails catching you on the plane again, I just personally believe that it's the game maker saying, don't forget about Tails, he's your little buddy. Okay, this Death Egg Zone is the final. Those two final bosses in this level, and you don't have any rings to deal with. So no Supersonic and no shortcuts. These are some of the most impressive fights in Sonic's history for when they came out. Now, this Silver Sonic, who Cairo calls Silver, I believe is the prototype for Metal Sonic. In fact, I called him Metal Sonic for years, and I could have swore that early on, like 1992, 1993, other people called him Metal Sonic as well. Now, you think this fight's easy just by looking at the clips here. I'm not sure if the clips were done by someone playing a remake or playing the original Sonic. But the original Genesis, it was a little bit of a scary fight. He had, Metal Sonic had 3 attacks, and that is to roll across the ground, roll up and down, and then also just stand there and move his back pointy things. With prototype Metal Sonic, the only way to hit him is when he's standing still, right? However, in the original Sega game, you had to hit him exactly right, because when he moves his back spikes, you can get hit by that and instantly die. Any hit in these two final bosses is an instant death. Okay, this final boss still gives me nightmares. You can get to the whole game on Sega Genesis and lose all your lives right here. The cropping for the original game is super scary. When Robotnik walks towards you, you have to hit him exactly right because his thorn-like hands, if you hit it wrong, it's just an instant death. I think the Sega team or the Sonic team knew that this was such a scary boss because this robot egg destroyer thing has shown up in multiple games now, and it all started with Sonic 2. After you beat Eggman here, this is the final boss. The space station explodes and you fall back down to Earth. Like I said, a lot of people think Sonic 2 is the best Sega game of all time, but I'm not gonna lie. Or at least the best Sega Sonic game of all time. But I will take Sonic 1 any day over Sonic 2. The reason for this being, remember I said this game had 2 huge flaws. The first is Tails being invincible, and the second player, even though it's fun to co-op, being able to take down Robotnik and any problems you might have and collect rings for you while being invincible. it doesn't quite break the game, but the second flaw does. The second flaw is supersonic. Supersonic is a cool idea. It's taken from Dragon Ball Z. The one of the three people who invented Sonic is best friends with the writer of Dragon Ball Z, and it has been highly noted that supersonic is taken from the Super Saiyan from Dragon Ball Z. Now, is extremely broken in this game. Like, look at some of these Robotnik fights and tell me, does this not break the game? Because Sonic 1 is so much harder than Sonic 2, that's the reason why Sonic 1 gets the gold rating versus Sonic 2, even though Sonic 2 had the potential to be so much better than Sonic 1. With all the level designs and everything, it just falls under the crack of Supersonic, in my opinion. While Sonic 2 is still a fantastic game, and I loved it growing up, and I'm sure you'll love it if you ever introduce your kids to it or if you're checking it out. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe.